take a moment to introduce your Thrive Tribe. Noel Ramos, financial coach from Atlanta, Georgia. Sabrina Protic, author and life coach from Tampa Bay, Florida. Stacy Soley, menopause coach from Palm Harbor, Florida. Gina Marie Casano, transformational coach from Bayville, New York, along with our business correspondents. Dana Washington, real estate investor from Tampa Bay, Florida. Deidre Pittman, tax strategist from Tampa Bay, Florida. Carmen Miller, attorney from Holiday, Florida. And Sylvia Camacho, financial coach from California. Now let's get ready to be empowered, and here's your Thrive Tribe. Thriving Women Talk is powered by the Trendsetter Mentor.
Thriving Women is
Welcome. Thank you for tuning to Thriving Women Talk. My name is Stacy Soley, and I'm honored to be here with the Thrive Tribe, our guests, and all of you, our listeners from across the globe. So excited to be here, and I know Gina wasn't able to make it because she's moving, so I can't wait for us to share our listeners to where she's moving and her a really wonderful experience. But ladies, I wanted to check in. How was your weekend, and any good news or things you want to share?
Well, I had a wonderful weekend, Stacy. One of my girlfriends, well, you got engaged, but another one got engaged, and I had the privilege and honor of watching them meet for the first time in months. And I don't know about you, but when you see love, girl, when love's in the air, everybody knows love. It makes you love even more. So that was kind of awesome.
I love that. And we need some good news, and some love definitely is really needed this time of year, right?
Yes,
definitely.
Well, if we don't have any more good news here, let me just share something I want to talk about. Mm-hmm. We have a lady named Jennifer Martin. She's an elementary school reading teacher in Texas. And she spent the past several years adding more than, get this, 1,500 books to her personal collection. That's a lot of reading. Wow. I don't know about you, but that's a lot of books. I'm sure, yeah, like I said, years. So you know what she decided to do? She decided to create a public library in the garage of her home. Imagine 1,500 books lining her garage. I can't even picture this. So she created this library, and it's called It's a No-Brainer. So she was actually interviewed on Good Morning America about opening up this library in her home, and she did it to create lifelong readers. So here she is, a student, and she wanted to inspire and encourage other students to read. So Martin's a 20-year teaching veteran, and for the past 3 years, she's taught in a school district just outside of Austin, Texas. She draws in students around the neighborhood. Some of these are remote neighborhoods. And because of the school's location, she said her public library was the closest to her elementary school, which is about 15 miles away. That's a good little hike, for a student that want to have access to books. And it was difficult for these students to have access. So while the students can check out books from her public library, Martin said she also wanted them to have the experience of picking out and having access to books at a library that they couldn't visit during school hours. And I want to give her 3 cheers for this because, we have all this electronic data, electronic online reading, but it's nothing like feeling and touching a book. And I'm so glad, because I miss the days of going to public libraries when I was a kid. But that was a big deal. You walk in there and just the books just have a certain smell to them. So I'm glad that she's bringing old school back to a new world and establishing this whole reading initiative so these students can still identify with a hardcover printed book. I'm excited about that. What do you think, Noelle?
Sabrina, I do enjoy a good book. So I bought a Kindle, and it's just not the same because I'm a nerd at heart. So I like to have my little cheesy bookmark in there. So you can't do that with the Kindle. It just kind of saves your space for you. And it's kind of like, oh, well, thanks a lot, but I kind of want to do it myself. So I just want to switch gears a little bit and talk about a poll that we researched earlier today. So want to go back and talk about 2/3 of Americans believe that they have become a better person this year. I was quite surprised to hear that. So the poll of about 2,000 Americans over the age of 21 looked at the positive changes they're looking for positive changes to come from this challenging time that we're facing right now. And in the ways in which respondents are reprioritizing their value, what they value. So results revealed 55% of the respondents were a bit embarrassed by some of the things that they had valued pre-quarantined. If I took that poll, I probably would have been one of those 55% who maybe were embarrassed. And the many months that they spent at home gave about 70% a chance to learn more about themselves. So this poll was commissioned by Coravin, and it was conducted by One Poll. And the survey found that the quarantine has understandably changed Americans' outlook in life. So some respondents gained the time and the flexibility to delve into some new hobbies that they were finding. And they were finding that they had new passions that they wanted to explore. And grocery stores were finding that there was a shortage in baking products. It wasn't just toilet paper now. So they had baking product shortages. And 35% said that they wanted to continue their hobbies once the quarantine was over. And the opportunity to explore personal interests beyond work has led 27% of respondents to indicate they are hoping to achieve a better work-life balance, which is a major theme for our respondents. And about 46% want to spend more quality time with their friends and family, understandable, and 38% plan to create a more meaningful relationship with those around them. You know, Stacey, talk about making a bad situation better. This was a horrible thing we're having to go through, but it probably opened the eyes to many people of what they could be, what they should be, and what's more important to them. Is it, materialistic, or is it more your values and friends and families? Stacey, can you lean on this for me a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. I love that they did this study, first of all, because I know that I've personally experienced that. And I love it when, there's studies done and you think, oh my gosh, there's more people that are experiencing this as well. So I'm not the only one. And I love it because it's something that's positive, good news too, right? It's not this negative. But yeah, I have to say, personally, I have really gotten so close, to my family and really appreciated so many, just kind of the little things, right? The little things that maybe used to bring me a little bit of joy, but now they bring me so much more joy. So just appreciating the things that I do have and not really nitpicking stuff and really just kind of choosing how I want to spend my time. So I would agree with that. I think I would be one of those people on the poll too that would have been a little bit kind of like, ooh, those are some values that I used to value. Yeah, absolutely. Well, today's hot topic is really, really hot. It is infidelity, and it's should I stay or should I go? And I know that as we were doing some research, they're estimating that today, or the estimates today, find that married men cheating rates are between 25% and 72%. That's a pretty big gap. And, given that most people aren't really willing to admit that they've cheated, research on cheating may underestimate its prevalence. So we've invited Katrina Iwu, who is giving us a broader perspective of this topic. And she is the author of the book, The Pain of Infidelity, Birth's Purpose to the Show. Now, her book, The Pain of Infidelity, Birth's Purpose, is a blueprint for the woman in need of healing from relationships. And, this is really designed, whether they're married or they're divorced or separated or single, if she's a woman that's in need of healing from past relationships, and I know that probably the majority of women have experienced this, it's really going to help her to build a relationship with God, walk in the newness of life, and learn to forgive. And it'll teach her how to trust and rebuild the trust lost within her relationship. I know I could have used this a couple years ago, so I'm excited to dive into this book, but really going to help you provide strategies on how to trust yourself and your partner, right? You don't want to be taking this with you in the future, and take through the process of healing with self-care and prayer, and really on that road to restoration. So I know we've also been talking about this month, which is September, is all about Life Insurance Awareness Month. And the Thrive Tribe is going to be sharing some notes on how to buy the right type within your budget, which is really challenging. And I love that we have some experts here on the Thrive Tribe that really can help out. And I know, Noelle, you're one of those as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I love this topic. I'm going to dive in deeper, but unfortunately, we have to take a sponsor break right now. And when we're going to come back, we're going to share a video on how to buy low-cost life insurance with living benefits. And we're also going to introduce our hot topic and our Thriving Women guest, Katrina Esau.
Thriving Women is sponsored by the Trendsetter Mentor Group, an exclusive membership for mentorship. TMG is an exclusive Facebook mentoring membership for thriving entrepreneurs with a culture of caring and sharing. TMG's mission is mentoring, inspiring, and empowerment. And if you're a thriving entrepreneur and inspired to surround yourself with like-minded peak performers, join TMG's exclusive membership group on Facebook by sending a members request to the Trendsetter Mentor Group. We are your membership for mentorship. Back to Thriving Women Talk.
Welcome back to Thriving Women Talk. This is Sabrina Protic coming at you, and we want to talk about COVID-19 right now. You know, the pandemic has raised an awareness of the fragility of life and how precarious our financial stability can be, despite the fact that many people generally recognize the value of life insurance. There's an organization called LIMRA, which is a worldwide research and consulting firm, and they connect people to data. Well, LIMRA conducted a research that showed that 40% of Americans are uninsured, and many more do not even have enough coverage. Well, before COVID, nearly 1 in 3 families said they would face financial challenges within 1 month if the primary wage earner died. Noelle, you would think that people would buy life insurance faster than they would buy car insurance, which is way more exhaustive since many people are sheltered in place. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I can't stress this enough. You know, I understand, you know, it goes to what you value. Again, we're discussing, you know, during the quarantine, what do you value the most? Do you value your car more? Do you value yourself more? So you got to find that happy medium, the middle. You need to put into perspective what we value most. And personally, I value my car. It gets me where I need to go, but I value my life more importantly and what I need to take care of. So in honor of Life Insurance Awareness Month, we're going to share a YouTube video with our viewers to illustrate why it's important to review your life insurance needs and to ask the questions about living benefit options. So Alan, can you play that video for us, please?
My name is Latasha McCray, and this is my living benefit story. I'm 38 years old. I'm a single mother of an 18-year-old, and I work in the banking industry.
I'm David Sutherland from Jacksonville, Florida, and I'm a living benefit life insurance agent. When I had first met Latasha, 30 years old, single mother with an 8-year-old son.
I am an avid gym goer. I was really in great health. Dave came over one afternoon.
She explained that, you know, what she was trying to accomplish was to protect her 8-year-old son in case something happened.
The idea that I like the most about the living benefits, it gave me security to let me know that if anything happened to me, my son would still be taken care of.
What we ended up doing was a 30-year term policy for $250,000 with all the benefits included.
So I decided to put the policy in place with Dave. Years had gone by, and I'm just working every day, going to work, not thinking anything of it. And one day I get a phone call from my doctor, and they called to let me know that I was diagnosed with stage 2-3 breast cancer. It was one of the worst calls in my life. I literally thought I was like losing everything that I had always worked for. I had always been in great health. I had all these financial plans set. And just to hear that, it just made me feel like I was losing everything. I went into shock for about 2 days. I didn't eat. I couldn't really sleep. My doctors were basically some of the best doctors that we had, and they put a plan together how we were going to beat cancer. So it began with telling me the financial needs, of course, the surgeries that I would need. The funding itself was astronomical. My job was kind enough to say, well, we'll give you time off, but it will be unpaid. Therefore, I really didn't have any income coming in to take care of my mortgage, to take care of my son. My insurance didn't cover 100% of my chemotherapy, and I couldn't afford it. I had stocks, I had savings, but it was nothing compared to the money that I would need to take care of the chemotherapy.
She happened to call and say, I need to cancel my plan. I have a health crisis, and I've been diagnosed with breast cancer. And I said, well, no, you don't need to cancel your plan to try and save premium. You need to put in a claim.
Through my job, I had great health insurance. I always thought that because I had great health insurance, I was always covered. Chemotherapy wasn't covered 100% with my insurance. So the living benefit really came in and helped me take care of those chemo treatments, my radiation, my surgeries, my biopsies. There's a lot of things associated with cancer that the insurance companies do not cover.
That's what gets people in trouble financially. And that's why you have a plan with living benefits that you don't have to die to use your plan.
I really didn't have income coming in to put gas in my car, to pay my car note. And I remember speaking with my doctors, and they told me this financial plan was going to cost thousands. One of the first plans that I received was $20,000.
The claims process took two to 3 weeks at the most. And then Latasha called me one day and just said, hey, I just got a check in the mail today for just a little over $65,000. She still has almost $170,000 of remaining benefit that's still existing.
Even though I was still fighting cancer, I still had surgeries I still had to recover from, financially, I didn't have to fight through anything because the living benefits plan was there. I just wanted to make sure that my son didn't feel that his mom was sick. He knew I was sick. You know, it was something that I was living through. I didn't want it to affect him at all. He still had his cable, still had his games. And I know to a lot of people that's not important, but to me, it was important for me to feel like I'm fighting this, not he's fighting this cancer. Through a total of 9 surgeries, and 2 years later, I've been cancer-free, 2 years December, and my life has like taken a total turn for the best.
She's back to living a normal life. And it's just a very rewarding, fulfilling thing to have been a small part of that.
The living benefit plan is something that everybody needs to look into, to spare just a few moments of your time, whether it's $30, $40, $50 a month. This is your future that you're thinking about. A lot of people say, I love my kids. If you love your kids, think about your kids' future. Think about your future with your kids, and think about your kids' future without you. If you're not thinking about all of these things, then you're really not planning for a future at all. And the living benefits plan basically makes sure that your kids are taken care of, you're taken care of, your illness is taken care of. Money isn't everything, but when you're battling cancer, it's a whole lot off of you.
It was a great video. I want to ask the question, what are accelerated benefits? And accelerated benefits, they're also known as living benefits. And I personally know someone who had a stroke, and, you know, everything is fine now. He was in the hospital for 2 weeks, but unfortunately he had that stroke. And because he had living benefits, he was able to get a portion of his policy while he was still living. And living benefits completely is a game changer. You know, too many people think of life insurance as it's a death benefit, and nobody wants to think about that. Nobody wants to think about, you know, their life ending. But with living benefits, you have to think about what happens while you're living. You know, I have a policy on myself. I'm single. I have no children. And I've had people ask me the question, well, why do you have life insurance if you have nobody to give it to? Well, what happens if something happens to me while I'm still living? And that's what I want to discuss is when I'm still living, if hospital bills is what puts people in bankruptcy. And I'm going to need that help if something happens while I'm still living, because I have no one to fall back on. I have to fall back on myself. And I want to reach out to Sabrina because I'd like you to explain a little bit better how living benefit works, if you could.
Well, thank you, Noelle. I'm so excited that I just recently learned about living benefits because, like most Americans, I too thought life insurance was all about death benefits. And like you said, who wants to talk about that?
Right.
I got that covered through my job. And, we're just uneducated. So I'm really happy that this is Life Insurance Awareness Month, because what we're doing is bringing information and education to you so you can understand. So what are living benefits? Well, this is how it works. It's an accelerated benefit option or rider inside of your life insurance policy. And it provides that all or a portion of the life insurance proceeds will be paid to the insured upon the occurrence of a specified event. These events include such things as the diagnosis of cancer, heart attack, stroke, end-stage renal, blindness, paralysis, kidney failure, chronic illness, or terminal illness that need long-term care, or the onset of a medically incapacitating condition. The life insurance company will deduct the accelerated benefits payment from the death benefit it ultimately pays to the beneficiary. And I want to say I had a classmate, I won't give his name, but at age 21, he came down with Lou Gehrig's disease. And talk about incapacitating. It started with one arm and then another, and then his legs, until he was finally in a wheelchair. This was a young man who had his whole life changed, much like we saw in the video. Those things are not announced. You don't get a warning flag. There's no advance notice that something like that's going to happen to you. So now with these living benefits, talk about protection for yourself, your family, and your loved ones. It's just phenomenal. Sylvia, how much of the face value of a policy can be collected early, and how is that paid out?
Yes, Sabrina, thank you. Companies offer anywhere from 25 to 100% of the death benefit as early payment. The amount varies from policy to policy. For those policies where accelerated benefits are added to the policy with no additional premium, the insurer will reduce the early payment to the policyholder, so it compensated for the interest it will lose at an earlier payout. Sometimes payments are made in a monthly installments, at other times in a lump sum. Some policies allow the policyholder to choose the method of payment. Each policy or rider specifies in the method available. Noelle?
Well, actually, I'd like to come in on that.
Sabrina?
Yes, that's okay. I tried. So, there's good news. There's light at the end of the rainbow. Currently, over 150 companies offer some type of accelerated benefits. In addition, other companies have indicated that they're developing plans currently as we speak, or they're considering them. More than 3 million Americans are now protected by accelerated benefits. That is such good news. Stacy?
Wow, I'm learning so much today. Thank you, ladies. I mean, you're sharing some really valuable information. So for those of you that are just joining us, this is definitely something that you want to kind of hit the replay on, or maybe if you're live, you want to be able to listen to this again, because this is all about how to buy life insurance with living benefits, and that's huge, right? So for those listeners, if you want to learn more, you can message Sabrina, Noelle, or Sylvia on Facebook. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to pivot our conversation from Life Insurance Awareness Month to our hot topic of infidelity. Do I stay or should I leave? And when we come back from our sponsored break, we will introduce author Katrina Isu, and we are so excited to have her with us.
Thriving Women Life Strategies is powered by Women Entrepreneurial Empowerment, commonly called WEE. The organization mission is empowering women entrepreneurs through a platform of visibility, education, and strategic growth and development within the networking arena. Their doors are open to women of all ages, millennials, new startups, small business, and those needing a boost. If you are committed to excellence and you want to know more about WEE platform, message founder Sabrina Protic on Facebook or email her at www.agelesstechniques.com. Back to Thriving Women Talk.
Welcome back to Thriving Women Talk. Our topic of discussion today is on infidelity and the impact it has on the spouse and the family. Psychology Today stated that when one partner goes outside of the relationship for emotional or physical needs, the other partner may end the relationship, or they might decide to forgive or maybe even stay in it. But really, either way, the extramarital affairs have a major negative effect that can be felt for some time. And the person who's been cheated on really can suffer a blow to his or her self-esteem. They can have thoughts of, was I not enough? Is this, did I do something wrong? Did I let myself go? Maybe this wouldn't have happened if I would have just done, and then, fill in the blank. So it's kind of a similar thing, just like children tend to blame themselves, for their parents' divorce. This can happen with a relationship as well. And there's, so much going on with that, and it really can impact them. And, chances are it has a lot more to do with the deficiency in the partner than in actually the person that, was cheated on. And another point is really the victim of an affair finds it difficult to trust because, right, the trust has been broken. He or she may doubt their judgment of others, so it could kind of spill out into different relationships. So even if this relationship ends and another one begins, the baggage that they're, carrying on of this infidelity really can kind of follow them through. So it's really important to get help to deal with your trust issues. Even if it means, getting professional help to do so. So you and your potential future partner is going to be really, really grateful in the long run that you dealt with the negative consequences of the affair now. So I know, Dana, you're going to be sharing some things on the emotional instability.
Yes, thank you, Stacy. The emotional instability is huge, is super huge because it affects not only you, but the people that you are around. You may feel that your world is turned upside down, and it's simply okay because that's just one of the side effects, right? So the things in your life that gave you a sense of security has been shattered at this point. It is normal to feel like the rug has just been pulled out from under you. It's important to find a sense of stability inside yourself. So look at your survivor skills. Look at what you've done in the past and realize that you could actually cope with this. You definitely can. You also feel that you are on a roller coaster of emotions because at one point you're crying, you're screaming, you want to blame yourself, you want to blame someone else, you want to blame him. It's normal. It's common in facing infidelity to feel all these emotions. Realize it's normal, feel what you're feeling, and simply work through it. Use your support system if you need to. Also, it impacts every asset of your life. It's a ripple effect. You feel like your job is different, your friends are different, you're making different choices in your life that you wouldn't normally make. It could be positive, it could be negative, but most victims in an affair say that it brought on all different changes in their lives. So it's important that you do not make any major changes in your life while in the midst of emotional turmoil, such as an affair. So I think Sabrina, you had some other insight that you wanted to bring to us from Dr. Katrina.
Yes, I do. We have a special guest here. She's an author, Dr. Katrina Esau. We want to bring her into our conversation. And welcome, Dr. Esau, to Thriving Women Talk. Katrina Esau, as we mentioned, is the author of a book called The Pain of Infidelity, Births of Purpose. Dr. Esau, can you share with our viewers what inspired you to write this book and this powerful title?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. So what inspired me to write the book? I began to come in contact with a lot of different women that were either in the midst of a separation because of infidelity. They were either, some had decided to leave, but I started to come in contact with a lot of different women. And at this point, I had not shared my story. So God began to deal with me privately about it being time to share it. And the thing that I realized is that I couldn't reach folk across the world. The one thing with infidelity, as I was researching and learned, it impacts 1 in every 2.7 couples. So it's definitely something that's a need. And I knew that I could not personally do that and touch folk around the world. So what I wanted to do was to put it in a book and to share it in a real and raw way so that women understand that you're not alone. As being a person that's walked through infidelity, a lot of times you feel like you're by yourself and that there's no one else that understands. So that's what really inspired me to put it in a book.
Thank you, Dr. Katrina. You just mentioned something. You said you put this in a real and raw way. Your book is really a tell-all. It's about your marriage, and it is open to criticism. Knowing that, what were your fears that you needed to overcome to write such a powerful and open subject matter?
For me, my biggest fear, honestly, when I started writing the book was, number one, I was fearful of, okay, have I really forgiven my husband? Am I really ready to start unpacking this stuff? Because I had come to a place to where, I didn't have the memories as much. And so it was like, I think that was the biggest fear for me is, have I really forgiven? Am I really ready to expose all? I wasn't really fearful of, people criticizing or coming against, because it's my truth. It's my reality. You can interpret or perceive it the way you want to, but it's my truth. And so the other thing for me that was very important when I decided to write the book was how my husband felt, because even though it is my truth, I knew, because we were very private about it when it happened, our family and friends didn't know. So I wanted to make sure that he was comfortable, because, some people are just going to buy the book because they're nosy. And I knew that. And my family didn't know. And it was also important for my daughter to be okay with it. And so once I had their approval of, publicizing my story, I really didn't care about anything else. But that was the biggest fear that I could say I had, was of the fear of, okay, is it going to reveal that I'm not healed? And so that was very important for me, because I always tell people I don't want to bleed on anybody. But yeah, that was my biggest fear. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. Noelle, did you want to lean in on that a little bit?
I do want to lean on it. I haven't gotten the chance to read your book, but I did read some of the reviews that were given for your book. And if I can, I want to share one with you guys, with our viewers and our listeners, because this one kind of popped out to me. It says, "Can I say amazing? This book is so raw, so honest that you might find yourself blushing as you read it, but you will not be able to put it down. Authenticity compels. Once you start, you will have no choice but to see it through, and the payoff is perfect. You choose. Dr. Katrina shares her soul, her journey, and her choices without making yours for you. Most worthwhile time investment I've made in years. It's not just a book, it's a paradigm shifter. And I took one of that review straight off of the internet. I was like, wow, I definitely have to check out this book now, just after reading the numerous reviews, the positive reviews that you have gotten. So my question for you, Dr. Katrina, is can you share with our viewers what was the moment when you made the decision to forgive your husband and why?
So for me, being a believer, I knew that I had to forgive. But in all honesty, at first, I was hurting. I was hurting so bad I didn't even see how I could forgive my husband. And I had went through. You go through saying I forgive you, and then you hear these things where we've been taught all these years, I'll forgive you, but I'll never forget. And I didn't want that. I wanted to really be able to forgive my husband for what had happened. And so I was going on, trying to just figure out what to do, how to do it, where to go. And one night I was watching TBN and there was a couple on there that were sharing their story of, how they had went through infidelity, their marriage was restored and how it was greater than it was prior to the infidelity. And it was at that moment. And I'm like, okay. And I said, okay, God, I hear you. But in the word, this is the one reason that you give us to get a divorce. And he said, I gave you the bill of divorcement because of the hardness of your heart. And he said, you're right. I will still bless you if you decide to divorce, but your daughter will have to fight if you don't. And when he said that to me, that was it, because I could not allow my daughter to have to fight something that I refused to fight. He showed me that it was a generational curse because my parents had been divorced, my grandparents divorced, my great-grandparents divorced. There had not been a model of what a healthy marriage looked like and one that withstood. And so it was at that moment that I decided that I had to fight for my marriage and divorce no longer could be an option.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Katrina. That is truly eye-opening for me, and I'm sure for many women who are going through the same struggle. Dana, did you want to ask your question next?
Wow, thank you, doctor, for that. And forgiveness is huge, but I do love the fact that you took in consideration your daughter, the generational curses that we in a lot of cultures are accustomed to. Can you share with us the stages of anger, the stages of pain that you had to go through to finally realize that this was the right decision?
So it was a lot. And, you mentioned earlier about the emotions and that place I was, I could be up today, down tomorrow. I was all over the place. I was angry. I was upset. Here I am, beautiful, Black educated woman, strong in my career. I'm a believer. I was mad, not just mad at my husband, but if I'm being honest, I was mad at God because I didn't understand, how did you let this happen to me? I love you. I'm a believer. I'm a tither. I'm a giver. I'm your favorite. And you let him do this to me. And so I had to work through that. And that was more important for me to work through because I knew that he was the only person that could help me. But the thing about having a relationship with God is you can come honestly and boldly, to him because he knows how we feel anyway. So I had to work through that. I had to work through, the shame and the guilt, the embarrassment. Who can I tell this to? Who can I talk to about this? So I was angry about that because I didn't have that girlfriend, and not that I didn't have a close girlfriend, but who's going to walk around with a sign saying my husband cheated on me? So I had to walk through that. And the only person I had was my spiritual mother. And she was straight by the Bible. So I didn't have the opportunity to go to her and, be in my humanly self and say, okay, I know God is real, but today is not a good day. Can I just get it out and we can, go back to God tomorrow? So that was kind of where, I had to walk through that. And then, the anger of knowing that, okay, God, you're saying that I have to restore and work on this marriage because I had asked God to make me a tool of reconciliation, but I thought that it was going to be a quick work. I didn't realize that it was going to turn into years of separation and different things that I had to do So I was angry because things weren't happening quick enough. I was angry because I was doing what God said to do and I wasn't seeing the results. And, and God had to remind me that just because you don't see it does not mean I'm not working. And so I had to work through that. And when I got to the, once he had told me about my daughter and the generational curse, I knew that I couldn't divorce. That just wasn't an option for me. So as I began to work through that, and God would give confirmation in different words, and so that's how I kind of worked through it until I got to the place to where I stopped vacillating. And it's a process. It really is a process.
Yes, it definitely is. And thanks for your testimony. And again, your faith, belief in Almighty allowed you to go through this, and he brought you through. So we definitely appreciate your story. Sylvia, what do you have for Dr. Katrina? I know she shared a whole lot with us, but she's not done yet. So
thank you, Dr. Katrina, for being with us this morning. You mentioned that regardless if you stay or you had the heel. I'm sorry. You mentioned that regardless if you stayed or left, you had to heal internally. Can you share why that is so important for women?
It's very important because the one thing is we have to heal emotionally. We have to heal on the inside. Our emotions have the ability to, we will change and go back and forth. And the thing about it is if you don't heal on the inside, it's going to come out. And usually when it comes out, it's at the most inopportune time. So one thing that I always tell ladies that I coach or counsel is I'm not here to tell you whether you should leave or whether you should go. But at the end of the day, you have to get healed and whole, because if you decide to stay, you can't keep bringing up what happened. You can't allow yourself to live a life where, there's no trust, there's no communication. You don't want to, do certain things because, oh my God, what if this happens? You have to heal so that you can be there 100% for your mate. And if you decide to leave, you still don't want to take that into another relationship. So you don't want to take that hurt and that pain. And then you have this, gentleman that's loving on you. And because of what somebody else did to you, you're still bringing that hurt and pain. And you may be accusing them or bringing up certain things all because of what somebody else did to you. So it's very important that you become healed and whole yourself as a woman, regardless of what you decide to do. You have to make sure that you are completely healed. And one thing I say, people will say, oh, I'm healed, I'm fine, I'm good. But if you're still bringing it up, if you're still finding yourself when there's a trigger or something that sets you back and you go into this deep, dark place, if you find that if an argument comes up and you can recount the day, the second, the time, and the hour of what was said and done to you, you're still not healed.
That's true. Stacey, do you have a question for Dr. Katrina?
Yes, I do. Wow, this is so on point. I love, everything that you're bringing here for our listeners. And, I know what I'm kind of curious about, a couple different things. Of course, my mind is just like, the trust that you had moving forward. Like, how do you rebuild that trust? I think that's such a huge part. And also for maybe those that didn't really have a spouse that's been cheated, has gone through that experience. But like, what would you say would be an important reason for them to read this book as well?
I would say, okay, do you want me to start with the trust or an important reason they should read the book?
Well, whatever you feel like you want to hit on. I know that that's a big, huge topic, but maybe just if you could give maybe a couple of pointers, that would be really helpful.
Absolutely. So I'll start with why the person should read the book, even if their spouse hasn't cheated. Chances are we've had some sort of trauma in our lives, whether it's emotional trauma because, somebody, talked down to us, told us we'd never be anybody. Perhaps you were abused, whether physically or mentally. You've had some sort of thing that has happened that you need to forgive someone. And so in the book, I talk about and teach different strategies on forgiveness and the importance of forgiveness and some of the barriers and triggers that can prevent you from forgiving. I also talk about a vertical relationship, which was critical For me, that's the only reason that I'm still here and that I'm still married to my husband. And when I say vertical relationship, I'm talking about my relationship with God. I refer to it as that because I know that everybody is not a Christian. But you have some sort of relationship with a higher power. So that's very important. I also talk in the book of the importance of self-care, which as women, a lot of times we lose ourselves. We're taking care of the children, the husband, we're working, we're building a career, all of these different things. So we lose caring for us. So I talk about that in the book. I also talk about how to build trust in the book, as well as walking in the newness of life. And just to segue on into the trusting question, the thing of it is it's going to take work. It's not going to happen overnight. And what my husband and I did is we had to have accountability. Prior to the infidelity, we didn't have accountability. Communication was horrible. So we had to learn how to communicate to one another. We had this thing that we called confirmation with information. And so like if he said, I'm going down to the 7-Eleven, when he would get to the 7-Eleven, he would literally take a picture of him in front of the 7-Eleven and send it to me. And people would be like, well, why are you doing that? You got to do what you got to do to build the trust. That was one thing we did. We also had the thing where anytime you get ready to go through my phone here, pick it up, you got the password, the fingerprint, the whatever. We did that. I stayed off social media. I just got on social media 2 years ago. And so it's just the different things. What worked for us may not be what works for you, but the two of you have to sit down and say and discuss what's important and what will help you to build that trust. And the thing about trust, you build that because you do what you say you're going to do, and you do that consistently. That's the only way that you're going to do it. You can't hit and miss. And the thing of it for me, there came a point where I decided I wasn't going to be a PI for the rest of my life. I don't want to do this. You're a grown adult. You're a grown man. Either if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. But I'm not going to live my life like this. And the thing of it is, for me, is when you learn who you are committing the offense against, it doesn't even matter. The offense is against God. And so that's how we built the trust. I had to trust God with my heart, because when I chose to forgive my husband, I did that knowing that he had the propensity to hurt me again. And that's what true forgiveness is. They can hurt you again, but you have to make a conscious decision on whether or not you're going to forgive. And the forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other person. And so that's why I did it the way I did.
Wow, that's so powerful. I can't wait to read your book. I'm going to dive in on that. That's amazing. Does anyone else have any other questions? This is fantastic.
I did, Stacy. I'd like to lean in. Dr. Katrina, you mentioned about, first of all, the internal healing. You mentioned about being absolutely sure. You mentioned about the forgiveness. But I know initially there's that knee-jerk reaction that I'm done with this. I'm over. I'm through. I'm done. What is that whole process? Because, I know when somebody hurts you, first thing you want to do is hurt them back and threaten. I'm leaving you. I'm done. Did that happen? Or, what are your thoughts on threatening in action? And maybe you're really not ready to make that decision yet.
So 2 things. Absolutely, it happened. When I was literally on my way from a conference back home when I found out my husband had cheated, that he had stayed with another woman that weekend. I did not ask questions. I did not seek counsel. I did nothing. I came home and I packed his stuff and he had to go. So that was the knee-jerk reaction. So yes, it happened. I don't even know if I would do it differently, because at the time I could not see how I could heal with him in my face. He had to go. The other thing you asked, tell me the second part of the question again. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So there's that knee-jerk reaction of this. I got to separate myself and cut myself off from this. But did you find yourself saying, even verbally saying or mentally thinking, I'm done with this. I got to go. I got to extract myself. We're done. Or did you keep all of that to yourself and try to work it out? I mean, did you do the whole threatening, I'm going to leave you, we're done? Or because I know that does happen.
Well, I tried to get a divorce from my husband 3 times. And every single time something happened. And so what I tell women, don't threaten. And because if you make the threat, you need to be ready to follow through. Because what happens is we say, well, if you do this, I'm going to leave you, and you don't do it. We train people how to teach or We train people how to treat us. And so when you say that you're going to do something, you don't do it. You're teaching them that, oh, she's just saying because she's mad, she'll get over it. No. So before I would make any type of idle threat or anything like that, I literally had to think it through and say, okay, well, if this happens, are you ready to take the next action? So there was some times where I was very slow in taking an action because I wasn't ready for the outcome. I wasn't ready to say, okay, maybe I'm done. I wasn't ready to say, okay, well, if you let me look through this phone, what happens if I see something? I just don't even want to know. So I did that for a while until I could build up the confidence and the faith and the trust enough to where, you know what, this is where I am. And I want to give you a great example, but I don't know if I have enough time. Before I give the example, do I have enough time or do I need to wait?
Go for it.
Okay. So one example early on in the process, God had told me to tell my husband, you have 3 days to come home. In my mind, I'm thinking, oh, great, this is going to be over. He's going to come home in 3 days. Well, that didn't happen. My husband, he didn't want to come. He didn't want to reconcile at the time. He hadn't even, admitted his wrong or owned up to it or anything. So here I am, like I said, thinking 3 days, we're good. I tell him that. I wasn't giving him an idle threat. I literally was telling him what I believe the Lord had told me. And he's not going to do that. And he don't give you no time and this, that, and the third. Whatever. 3 days went by. Those 3 days turned into 3 years. So that was I'm like, okay, God, I know what you said. But in those 3 years, there came a time where and I talk about this in the book where I say, where the wife becomes the other woman. My husband and I began to date again. And as we would go on different dates and he would tell me, he was like, ever since you said the Lord had told you for me to come home and I didn't, he was like, I'm constant, he's like, my pockets are like holes. He's like, I can't keep money and stuff because my husband was part owner in a strip joint. And so he was like, I couldn't keep money and different things were happening. And so even though I couldn't see it, God was still moving. So I even learned from that, that even made me, very careful of when I would say something. So I don't like to threaten. If you're you have to have accountability and you have to have different things put in place. But if you know that you're not going to stick to it, don't do it because it's only going to bring hurt to you, when that person learns the pattern. And that's what happens. They will learn your pattern. Oh, okay, she's mad. Let me give her 2 days and, maybe I'll buy her some flowers or something, because that's even when I would bring stuff up to my husband. He knew I love shopping. What woman doesn't? So I'd bring up something and he'd be like, oh, here's some money. Go shop, go do this. And that's okay for the moment, but I can't go to bed with the money. I can't hold the money. So you have to be very careful of making threats. Just make sure that whatever decision you make, and that's why I harp so much on the relationship with God, because you have to have discernment. You have to get instruction. And sometimes, we say, oh, we got women's intuition, but when you've been hurt, your intuition might be skewed. So you'll be thinking stuff is happening. We have a way of conjuring up some stuff, and it's the farthest thing from the truth. So it's important to have a relationship with God so that you can get instruction. And number one, know that that's where you're supposed to be, because, some marriages we get into that we never should have been in. And so that's another reason why I try to steer clear of telling a woman whether she should leave or she should go, is because I don't know if you should have been there in the first place. So I push you to cultivate a relationship with God and make sure that you know that you know that you know. And when you make the decision to stay, ride it out, do your work, do your part.
Wow, Dr. Katrina, loving every minute of this. We appreciate you coming on. But right now we got to take a sponsor break. So when we come back from our sponsor break, we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Katrina Esau.
For more episodes of the Thriving Women Talk Show, visit the Mindshift Coaching Services YouTube channel and subscribe. Experience the shift with transformational coaching through Mindshift Coaching Services. Our expertise is in mindset, habit, and behavior change, providing total support and accountability. Together, we will transform your pain into power using transformational coaching method techniques to guide you towards creating a clear vision and purpose while aligning your actions with your goals. To learn more, visit mindshiftcoaching.com. Now, back to Thriving Women.
So welcome back from our commercial. So if you're just joining us now, we are talking to Dr. Katrina Esau. She is the author of the book, The Pain of Infidelity Births Purpose. We need it. I encourage you, our listeners, to get this book. Just listening to Dr. Katrina, she's very vulnerable, showing very transparent, and she's putting her heart and soul into all of this. And it's so enlightening. It's so empowering. And the purpose that she's showing in this book, I mean, words can't even describe. So I want to ask you, Dr. Katrina, can you break down the sequence of your chapters in this book, and what do you want your readers to know about infidelity? So we'll start with the first one. Can you just break down the chapters in your book for us, please?
Yes. So the way that I've broken it out in the book, the first part, I refer to it as the breaking. And I refer to it as the breaking because it talks about, what happened with myself, what happened with my husband. And the one thing I also share in there is, when you're going through, and I think someone mentioned it earlier, with infidelity, you want to do something to hurt the other person. And so I fell prey to that. I fell prey and said, okay, well, you cheated, I'll cheat. And so that does not work. You can't, two wrongs does not make a right. So I talk about that. I'm very clear in that, because the one thing I want to be is I don't want to just share one side of the story. I want to share both. So I do that. I also share about, the wife becomes the other woman, which is, I alluded to earlier, when we started to date again as we were separated. And then I start to talk about the road to restoration and what that looks like. My husband ended up having to go off to prison. I said we were separated 3 years, then he went to prison for almost another 3. So having to work through that. And then the second part of the book is actually the blueprint to becoming whole. And that's where I talk about what I refer to as the 5 pillars of restoration. And I talk about forgiveness. It's time to heal. Talk about getting in alignment vertically. Self-care. It's time to love you. Walking in the newness of life. And then it's okay to trust. And then the last chapter, which was very important to me, was to hear the heart of my husband, because like I said, I'm telling this from my perspective and what happened to me. I wanted to give him the opportunity to, whether if he felt like he needed to defend himself or whatever he wanted to do, I wanted him to have a voice. So the final chapter in the book is chapter 10, and it's from the heart of my husband.
Wow, that's amazing. Just you including your husband. I mean, that's awesome. I never even thought about it. I wouldn't even be like, oh, well, he did it. It's on him. He don't get no opinion. He don't get no say. But I know some of these other ladies are itching to ask you some questions. Sylvia, can you give us a question, please?
Yes, Noel. Dr. Katrina, if someone came to you for an advice with a similar situation, what will your approach to that conversation?
When women come to me that have been through or are in the midst of, or what have you, of going through infidelity, the one thing I always ask them first is, what's your decision? Have you decided to stay or to leave? Are you sure? And so that's important for me, because number one, that helps me to help you walk it out. If you don't know what you're going to do, it's kind of hard to give you instruction. So that's the kind of the first step that I do is, what's the decision? And then I equip and help them, whether that decision, like I said, is to stay or to leave. I then begin to help work with them on themselves. I'm not helping you fix the other person. We're going to help you heal. We're going to help you to take off the mask of the shame, the guilt, the hurt, the embarrassment, help you walk through the emotional piece of it. Also help you begin to take care of yourself. I identify who you need to forgive. One thing I learned is, like I said earlier, it's more than just forgiving your husband. You might have to forgive God. Some people, always say, forgive God. Yes. Like I said, I was very angry at God. So you might have to forgive God. You might have to forgive, your child. Maybe you have to forgive your parents for modeling, that it's okay to be in, some sort of abusive relationship, or maybe your father wasn't there and you feel like, well, if you would have been there, I would have known how a man's supposed to treat me. I don't know who you might have to forgive. So I like to kind of walk through that. I know for me, what I learned in going through it is I had to forgive my dad. And I'm a daddy's girl, so I didn't even realize that I had any unforgiveness, but I learned that I needed to forgive him because my dad had left. He and my mom divorced at a very young age. And because he wasn't there, that's what opened the door for me to have issues with trust. And so you have to kind of walk that through. And that's what I give women as we walk through, what the strategy is going to be to help you get to your place of healing and wholeness.
Such a powerful information for everybody and for our listeners. Noel, do you have another question for Dr. Katrina?
I do not, but I'm going to go ahead and let Dana ask the last question.
Yes. Thank you, Noel. I'm just sitting back taking all of this in. Wow. Dr. Katrina, you have taken a negative event in your life and used it to help others. What is your vision moving forward with the success of your book?
My vision for moving forward, actually, I'm in the process right now. Like I said, I've been doing some one-on-one coaching with some wives. I also have a Facebook group, a private Facebook group for wives that have been impacted by infidelity, that they can come and have a safe place. I talked about it earlier. That was something that was important to me walking through. I didn't feel like I had a safe place to, take off all the different masks. And, so I have that. And then I'm actually in the process of launching a whole academy, which is Wives Healing Openly, Leaving Him Exalted. I'm looking to launch that in November. So literally just started doing the pre-promotions last week to open that up for any wife that has been impacted and that would like to join. They can, reach out and just inbox me and the word founder to get more information. But that's how I'm taking it forward, because yes, I have my book, which I will continue to promote, but the academy will actually be a lot of the courses in the academy was going to come from the 5 pillars that I share about the road to restoration and to be able to strengthen and help wives push past.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Dr. Katrina?
Yes, ma'am.
We are so happy to have you on our show today. We are so excited. As you see, we're running out of time. There's many more things we can talk about. So we want to have you back on next week's show because you have so much wisdom to share. As a matter of fact, if any of our guests, our listeners have any questions, shoot those questions over to us at TMG. I'll finalize that at the end. Dr. Katrina, how can our viewers get your book?
They can get my book on my website. They can get autographed copies, www.drkatrinaesau.com. It's also available on Amazon as well as Kindle, as well as my Facebook page, KE3 Worldwide Enterprises. On the Facebook page and my website are the only 2 places that you can get the autographed copies, as well as there's a package you can get the book and the accompanying journal for $25. So those are the only 2 places you can get those. Otherwise, you can get the book itself, again, on Amazon as well as Kindle.
Thank you so much, Dr. Katrina Esau. It's been a pleasure having you here on our show today. Woo, I think we could take a deep breath on this one. I mean, this is like tell. And we're so happy she had the courage to do that. We've had a very empowering and enlightening show with Dr. Katrina today. We certainly want to thank her for her honesty and transparency. We look forward to hearing more on this topic next week. Special thanks to our Thrive Tribe, Noel Ramos, Gina Casano, who couldn't be with us today. Deirdre Pittman was not with us today. Sylvia Camacho and Dana Washington. Special thanks to our producer, the Thriving Women Network engineer, Alan Chaffins. Tune in to Thriving Women Network, our new show, Uncomfortable Conversations. It's a talk radio morning show with Pete Berardi, Brandy Taylor, Shannon Carlson, and Ricky Burney. This will be aired on Wednesdays at 8:00 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, this is talk radio. You can follow all of our hosts on Trendsetter Mentorship Facebook group. Join our page, and we want to also thank our producer, Daryl A. Johnson, for yet a phenomenal hot topic for thriving women. We invite you back. Thank you again for joining us. Thriving Women signing off for today. I'm Sabrina Protic.
You can follow all of our hosts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you're interested in joining the Trendsetter Mentor Group or being a guest on Thriving Women Talk, email Daryl Johnson at